Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is now 5:30, and I will call this regular work session of the Burnsville City Council to order. Let the record show that Councilmember Keeley is absent. He is out of town at a work meeting. And so members of the public are welcome to join us in person, and also, if they choose, can watch this meeting at burnsvillemn.gov/meetings or Comcast Channel 16 or 859. The public can also join us on Zoom by going to zoom.us/join. More information is available on our meetings webpage and in the council agenda packet. It's a work session, so we go directly to the items on the agenda. So the first item on the agenda is our traffic signal study, and our Public Works Director, Mark Ray, is going to be presenting. So, Mark, the floor is yours.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. As a reminder, all of our capital studies really do three things: what we have, what condition they're in, and how we're going to maintain them. Looking at really traffic signals across the entire city, we do have 21 city-owned traffic signals, 30 county-owned signals, and 18 state-owned signals. Also, 9 pedestrian crossing warning systems and 5 other types, such as like a speed advisory sign. Looking at the overall condition of our signals, really the bulk here, the takeaway is that most of our signals are condition 3 or 4, so they're in good or monitoring. The ones as we get close to the condition 1 or 2, they're being monitored a little more closely, especially as we meet or exceed that 30-year life. From a funding standpoint for our for our traffic signal system, there are really 2 main sources. Municipal state aid is used to fund either new installations or replacement of existing traffic signals, and then general fund operating budgets are what's used for ongoing maintenance, repairs, kind of the more unplanned things that come up. Obviously, we do have a cost share. If our partner agencies are replacing signals where there's a leg that's a city street, we have a cost share there. And then grants are somewhat used, but more if it's part of a larger project. So, for example, the traffic signal on 13 and Nicollet has 2 city connections. And so that would be, as part of the 13 corridor study, for example, that would be used to cover a portion of that. Looking at what we do with the traffic signals, again, kind of 2 real buckets to think about. Obviously, new or replacement of traffic signals, and then again, kind of that maintenance and repair catch-all of everything else. So for those new or replacement projects, for a new signal, we look at almost $750,000 for the installation. That does include professional services for design. And again, municipal state aid is the funding source for city traffic signals. Most of them are on our state, actually all of our city signals are on our state aid system. From a maintenance and repair standpoint, again, here's some examples such as repainting, it's about $10,000 per intersection. Relamping, so that's literally just replacing a bulb such as a green, is $250. Issues with equipment would have spot replacements. Then obviously other unplanned things generally are electrical issues. Those all get funded out of our general operating fund. Looking at programs that we have planned, program projects, this year Williams Drive and Judicial, that cost you see there, $313,000 is actually the bid cost only for the installation of the new signal. 42 in South Cross, that is the total budgeted cost. The city obviously only has a portion of that. Williams Drive in Morgan, that's a simple traffic painting project. Again, that's a bid price. Annually, we do budget for 2 city signals to be painted, so we budget $20,000 in our operating fund. And then looking to the future, we have 2 additional signals scheduled for replacement. Again, the county at County 5 in South Cross, and then the city one at Nicollet and Travelers Trail next year. I do want to note the lower cost for Nicollet and Travelers Trail. That one's only $500 because it's replacement, and it doesn't, I don't think, impacts the cabinet, which does help save some cost there.
Mark, can you go back to So County Road 5 and South Cross, is the $850 our cost?
No, that is the total cost,
total
Mayor.
cost.
Our share, and then we did the total cost, try to be, comparison across all of them.
Okay.
We have it based on the number of legs, so it'll be roughly 50% of that cost for our two, I believe we have 2 legs there that intersect.
Yeah, because we cost share with the county on 5.
Exactly correct. Yep.
Okay.
Ultimately, recommendations out of that traffic signal study: standardize the traffic signal color we're painting across the city, so be consistent both in HOCs across the other city signals, and then obviously maintain a painting schedule. Prioritize full replacement of signal systems over 30 years. So once that signal gets into that 30-year range, we start watching it a little more closely, and when it shows signs of need to be replaced, we schedule that appropriately, and that's why you see that with Nicollet and Travelers Trail. Continue incorporating pedestrian accessibility, whether it's concrete work, push buttons, countdown timers, incorporate that as part of larger projects, or if there's smaller projects that can be done, include that. Then obviously continue to coordinate work with the county and state partners. With that, I'll take any questions you have. Perfect. Thank you very much.
Can I ask just a
Yeah.
one-off? I
Vince?
almost got you out of here. I know a few years ago we did kind of a newer signal at River Hills and Cliff for like the visually impaired
Yes.
with the beeping and all that. Or is that something that
It's
we're
13, it was on 13 in River Hills.
So you're talking about the push buttons for
Yeah.
the pedestrians, the
Yeah, and it gives
vibro-tactile
like
ones?
an audible
Yep,
countdown.
correct.
Is that something that we're expanding across the city?
So that would be part of the accessibility upgrades when signals are totally replaced, yes. There's a little more control that goes into it, so you can't necessarily just swap them out with existing ones. But yeah, that's part of the accessibility requirements.
Okay. Thank
So
you.
Mark, just so I'm following and for the community, when we do a full replacement with a project, it's at that point in time that those upgrades are.
We're actually
happening?
required to, correct.
That also means that we'll have the flashing yellow turn signal on some of those lights that don't have
Where
it now.
appropriate, yes. When that signal is replaced, that would be integrated at
Yeah.
that time, correct.
Okay, but we don't just put in a flashing yellow light because we need it, but we wait until we're going to be doing something?
We obviously could do a flashing yellow arrow retrofit at a time other than a normal replacement, depending on where it is. If it's we have to work with an agency, it's just that would need to be a programmed project as part of your budgeting process to do that. That couldn't be something that covered by operating funds, for example.
Okay. Any other questions for Mark? Thank you very much. This is really good. At least in reading through it, I get a better understanding of each of our traffic signals and the replacement or the maintenance cost for all of that and when it's going to be done. So I'm glad to see, but we only repaint 2 poles a year?
Correct. That's what's, and that dollar value has not changed in a while. And obviously, there's been some pressures from inflation as well.
How far are we in a deficit of getting all those poles? I'm just only talking about our
The city
assets,
signal poles,
not the
yeah.
county or MnDOT's.
So we are planning on doing 2 polls yet this year, and I got to follow up with the team on where those exactly are. As far as a net deficit, I'm looking into, we haven't done 2 polls the last few years that I've checked into, and so I'm trying to gather some more information on why that might be. If there were some other signal issues, they might have, operating costs might have been a pressure on that. So,
Because there are some of our signals that winter salt and all of that has been hard on
you
them.
can say that traffic signals have been assaulted there.
Yeah.
That's a good way
Kind
to
of
phrase
look
it.
tacky. We gotta spruce it up a little.
Message received.
Thank you.
And Mayor, Council, from a staff perspective, we would agree with that.
Yeah.
This study and its recommendations give us standards for the aesthetic of how that operations and maintenance work will be done over the course of time. To Mark's point, We'll do the two that are planned for this year.
Yeah.
Another conversation that I plan or intend to have with staff as a result of this study will be to look back at what we have or haven't done, and then make appropriate adjustments in our budget recommendations back to you to make sure that the recommendations of this plan, in fact, are happening
Yeah.
out through the community. So more to come in that.
Okay, good, thank you. Because I think that's good for the community to also know, how many do we paint and maintain and upkeep of some
Absolutely.
of those poles. And I always tell them, what we have, we take care of. What the county has, it's their responsibility, and what the state has is their responsibility. So,
Correct.
yeah, thank you. Okay. The next item on the agenda is our Information Technology Capital Improvement Plan. And Mr. Venables, our IT Director, is going to introduce our guests.
I will
Tom?
kick off
floor
the
is yours.
conversation and hand it over to our guests here from True North Consulting Group. Madam Mayor, thank you for having us here tonight to discuss the IT capital study that is one of 6 that started in processes in 2023. I would just preface that we were in the process of completing that assessment earlier this year, but had to pause for a little bit in order to adjust our direction based on the Police City Hall project either moving forward or not. And fortunately, it is moving forward, and so the study incorporated the changes that are, the study assumes the changes as a result of the project moving forward. And Mike Indergaard will talk about that. We have Mike Indergaard from True North Consulting, along with Shane Leverance, who are part of the team that we've worked with for the last 2 years on this process. Mike will go through this slide deck, and then we'll stand for questions during and after. Thank you.
Okay, very good.
Alrighty.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Tom, and thank you, everybody, for allowing us to be here to take you through the journey of the last 2 years. Has gone by pretty quickly. I can't believe it's been that long. But so we wanted to present the findings, and it's been a journey, and so only being able to do summarizing it into 20 minutes is tough, but we'll do our best. So our assessment process, this is a methodology that we have used for a good long while now with a bunch of other cities that are Burnsville size. This same sort of approach allows us to really get a lay of the land, and then at the end of the engagement, come out with not only a working understanding and knowledge of the city and its operations, but also to be able to provide custom specific recommendations that city can use going forward, whether they be short-term or long-term next steps. So you can see all the studies that we have listed there, and then our methodology there along the right. That is the path that we've taken. We start at the beginning with all of our document collection, maybe our site walks, interviews with key staff members to understand what the state of the union is, and then compare that to cities that are Burnsville's size and the technology industry, and what is leading edge, bleeding edge, what is aging, things like that, so that we can then score against it. And we usually do have a scoring system, and fortunately we were able to use the condition scores here. So it was a pretty easy transition for us to convert the scoring that we're used to what the city needed. So the scoring that you can see here, it's pretty self-explanatory. Red's bad, green is good, and everywhere in between. We'll look, and as we go through each one of these systems, each one of them got a condition score, as you've seen in other assessments. So none of that should be, anything new to anybody. But our scoring system, like for example, the 1, that's a system that is in dire need of replacement. It's a great risk to the city, all the way up to 5, where it is fantastic and no changes need to be made. And it's something that really should be celebrated, and the city does have that score. So we'll go through each one of these, the technologies that we assess. So the data center spaces, and I realize that some of you may have heard or read the report and seen some of this too. So forgive me if this is a revisit for some of you, but the data center spaces, so that's where the centralized resources of the city reside. It's not the systems in it, like servers and firewalls and such, but it's the space, the architectural space that houses that gear. And how physically secure is it? Is it cooled? Is it powered? Just again, some of those kind of facilities elements to it that go into our assessment. Camera systems, access control systems. So access control is electronic access control systems for doors. Unified communications is a phone system, but with other applications, current cutting edge applications that are usually adjacent to phone systems these days. Telecommunication spaces, so that is in all of the buildings, that's where all of the network switches are housed. And they're kind of like mini data centers. That's where all the cabling comes in, but we still need to make sure that it's powered and cooled in order to protect the city's investment so that things don't get too hot or something's not dripping on them, stuff like that. So the telecommunications spaces is also one of the systems that we covered. So the data center spaces. So when we started this 2 years ago, the city had these two data centers, and one of them's here. And so we took a look at what it looked like at that time. And I think, and it's not in this, I don't think it's in the report, but I think it scored a 3 on our scoring system. There were some elements that needed to be changed and that we recommend need to be fixed, and it was power and cooling related. It was cabling inside of, some of those things. But when we got the news that there's going to be basically a new space created, and we got to see what some of the plans were around it, and during its preliminary construction, that matches all of the things that would make us score something like that a 5. And so, we applaud the city in its design and it moving forward with a space that houses those critical systems. So yeah, good job. The disaster recovery site is in the maintenance facility. It's 2 miles away from the main data center, and it is in really good shape as well. So when it comes to the physical security and the power and the cooling and just the layout of the space, it's also in really good shape as well. So that was a 5 for the city. Just a couple pictures on the left. That's the data center that we started with 2 years ago. So it does look clean. It does look, in decent shape. So some of the elements that went into that 3 are maybe not necessarily visible, in that photo there. But at least we wanted to give you guys a picture about what the city has had. In the middle is the DR site over there in maintenance, and the battery backup system. So, it's giant batteries, to make sure that all the data and the applications, are backed up and kept safe in case of an outage or a failure of some kind. So enterprise systems, so these are all of the servers and firewalls, or not firewalls, but the servers and backup systems that are housed in those data centers. And so some of those systems, you can see the condition there is 2, that there are systems that do need to be replaced. And 2 years ago, that was an initial finding that we found, and now the city is in the process of making steps towards a new system that houses all the applications and the data that the city uses every day, 24/7. And so, excuse me. So there's the data, there's the servers, there's the storage to house all of the files and applications. And then the backup system is also, critical to that. So having all 3 of those together, incorporated together and installed together, is easier than if they were all split up. So applaud the city on making moves towards that. Just some pictures, just pictures worth 1,000 words. So just so you get an idea about what it is that goes into those enterprise systems. So those in the middle there are the ones over there at the maintenance facility. And so if anything that happens to be operating at the main data center goes down, then the servers and such at the secondary data center or the disaster recovery site, those flip on. You know, they now take up the load that the main servers had been doing before. So then there's the wide area network and internet connection. So the wide area network is the fiber running all around the city, and that is a condition 4. It's in really good shape. There is many of the buildings around the city have dual connections, which is ideal. You never know when some sort of backhoe or somebody is going to split the, doing construction is going to split the fiber, and then, it's days usually before you can get something, you can get back up again unless you have a second connection. So good there. Cybersecurity, so the firewalls for all of the perimeter security and protection against hackers and other, malicious traffic that tries to weasel its way into the network. So those are in good shape now, but we do want to look ahead to they will eventually reach the end of their life cycle and will need to be replaced. So those have been identified, but not for a few years. And then just a couple pictures of those firewalls at the 2 sites, and then some of the partners there on the far right, some of the partners that the city uses for various cybersecurity protection. So the telecommunication spaces. So this was the smaller spaces, and there's probably one, in a room near us here that houses some of those network switches where all the cables come into. You can see that there are a bunch that do need attention. So and this is sometimes can be a conversation with a facilities group, but wanted to include this as part of the assessment because it's what houses all of our IT equipment. We want to make sure that it's in good shape, because if it's in a shambles and we put all this new equipment in and it's not well suited for it, then the clock starts ticking even faster, on our fancy new expensive equipment that we just put in. So we want to make sure that the cooling and the grounding is all in good shape. The 4th bullet down there, you can see that there is a number of spaces that are shared with other departments, meaning it could be like a janitor's closet. So you might have some equipment that's mounted to a wall, but near it might be where the janitor puts his mop and broom in there. And so it's not like he's up there yanking cables out or anything like that. But just from a physical security standpoint of making sure that different services stay separate is a best practice. And then just to show you, so on the far right, that is an ideal space. It's well lit, clean floor. There's no other departments that have access to it. The cabling looks good. The power is in good shape. So that's a pristine site, location that we should take as an example. The one there on the far left, you can see that the cabling has kind of fallen, and it just needs to be neater to help for things like troubleshooting and making sure, finding out what is even plugged into what. And by knowing that, then Tom's team can solve a problem that much quicker and move on to something else that is even more, that might, the next thing on the list that's maybe even more pressing. So by keeping those things in good shape like that, that helps. So the cables themselves, and this is in a really good.
Oh, you went too fast, because
excuse
Fire
me.
Station 1 is really nice.
Yes, it is. Yeah, Fire Station 1 is in good shape, absolutely. Right.
And that's the standard you want for everything.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
Taurus.
Yeah. For the cabling, relatively few of the cables around the city need replacing. So cables need to be refreshed regularly because you have everything from rodents who like to chew away at them to they go out of standard, things get dusty, things get crimped and broken. And that's also just from a speed standpoint, as our devices get more and more advanced and our applications get faster and faster, it eventually boils down to the cabling. If the cables can't handle it, then now everything else slows down. You can get the fanciest stuff in the world, but if our cables can't connect them together fast enough, then we've got a bottleneck. So cabling is important. It's not exciting, it's kind of a boring thing, who really cares about cables, and everybody thinks, well, everything's Wi-Fi, why do we need cables? You still have things you gotta plug in. That's never gonna go away. So all the cables then plug into the network switches, and the switches, about half of them, we identified that those are aging, that they're about at their end of life. And when something goes end of life, end of support, the manufacturer doesn't issue, they don't provide support for it anymore. They don't issue any more firmware updates and security patches, and so they become a risk. Not to mention feature and functionality that just are, new features are released every day, and the older something gets, if it doesn't have the ability to have the latest and greatest from a cybersecurity standpoint, but just bless you. But just a function standpoint, they get less and less useful. So the city, though, has identified that, and like the servers we talked about earlier, this is also on the radar for the city to replace a large majority of those switches so that they can enjoy the support, the features, and the cybersecurity risk minimized. Wi-Fi. So we did a bunch of Wi-Fi surveys to see what the coverage was, but also what are the model of the access points. And just like the other devices we've talked about, if these aren't refreshed somewhat regularly, you also don't enjoy the same speeds and capabilities that the newest standards have. So there are only a few of the current wireless access points that are capable of some of the newest standards that are out there. And so by refreshing those and budgeting for those, Wi-Fi can be as robust and as fast and responsive as you can have it, as much as you can throw at it. Cameras. So this is not the cameras that are outside on the streets, protecting the public. These are cameras that are like for the within the buildings. Just want to make that clear. The current, I'll say that camera systems and door systems, we like to see those integrate together so that I can, if I see something happening, if I see somebody on a camera, like if somebody's detected after hours, then it can do something with the doors, whether it's to lock them or unlock them. And so you do see those two systems today integrated. Even if it's not the same manufacturer, you do see them interlocking and working together. And right now, the current camera system is incapable of doing that. And so know that the city has started to make some effort towards a system that can integrate with other door systems. So it's on the right path, but right now it can just have a condition 2. And the cameras, you can see that 2/3 of those also are end of support as well. So they are not going to get any more of those firmware upgrades or any of those cybersecurity updates. And so they also need a refresh. The access control, so this is the doors, electronic access control system. So it is a cumbersome system to use, and it doesn't work with the camera system. So just like its brother, it also has a 2, and we recommend it being replaced. There is a back-end component to it, the servers that are in the data center, and then there's all of the building hardware that's installed on the doors themselves. And so there are elements of both that do need replacement. Security systems. So this is visitor management. So when somebody comes in, even this evening, I mean, it wasn't a system, But when I came in, somebody said, hey, do you happen to have a badge with you? And so having some sort of a process and a system that can support issuing like when a visitor comes in, do I need to have something like, how do I produce this badge that would hang off of my shirt? And so cities identified that, and that is being spun up as something at the key sites. Not every building needs it, because not every building has visitors, but at those buildings, they're on the radar. And there are the intrusion detection systems or alarms. There are 4 buildings right now that do have alarm systems, but they're all different. And so you want to unify those on one system so that it's easier to manage and support, and to then deploy that out to the rest of those key sites is a recommendation. Unified communications, so that's the phone system. So beyond just the regular dial and dial tone and voicemail that we're accustomed to hearing or to using with the phone system, unified communications platform today also adds on things like video conferencing and chat. And so other applications that are now just part of a communications platform that are standard. They're standard today. And so the city is going to be able to leverage existing software agreements to be able to roll out a new phone system, the chat, the video conferencing, the voicemail, but the handsets themselves also, there's a lot of those that are aging and need a refresh as well. They're also something that's on the network. They also need those firmware updates. They also need those cybersecurity updates. And as they age, they fall out of that ring, and they also become a risk too. So by refreshing those handsets, it's not just so that you get something that's not dusty anymore, and it's, all the numbers are there and not worn off by, pressing them 10,000 times. They are they're on the network. They could be viewed as a risk. So by refreshing them, you mitigate that. Multimedia system. So just like what we're seeing here, across the board, the AV systems are in good shape. So there's not really very much that needs to be done there. So good job. Staff devices, so laptops, desktops, those sorts of things. So there are a percentage of them that are approaching their end of life, but the city leverages a partnership with Dell, where they have this sort of rolling, you don't have to do them all at once. That's a big hit. So to spread it out, it's this every third year something gets, a device gets replaced. And we encourage that. We support that approach. That works for lots of entities, not just municipal governments. So we applaud it. So here's all the systems and all the scores together. You see that glorious 5 there. You'll also notice no 1s. So there were no reds. So that's a good thing. A number of the oranges and yellows, though, and so those those could be targeted for higher priority. Let's start to work on some of these sooner than later. This life cycle is something that we can use to sort of at least gauge how long should this thing last so that I can plan. A lot of times IT spending is reactive. This broke, we got to replace it. Let's see if we can absolutely get as much as we can out of this thing before it dies. But that is, that's not proactive. That's not the way to go. And so by understanding the lifespan of some of these systems, you can at least start with some data and work from there. So just wanted to have that in there as sort of an illustration about how long some of these things can go. So here is the we're going to call it cost estimations for remediation. So each one of these, based on their condition and basically their score, we took the and what our understanding is of industry trends and how much things cost today, and this is what our estimations are for how much it would cost for each one of these things for either remediation or just to continue its maintenance and continue its, its operation over long term. And it includes the cost of the device itself, or the piece of hardware, how much it would cost for labor for a contractor to come install it, 5 years of warranty to make sure that it can have the support for longer than, just out of the box, and for accessories. So there's always the little bits and pieces and parts that don't get included and get forgotten and then still have to be bought and paid for. And so just from our experience of doing these kind of engagements and helping cities and other entities with procurement of these and the rollout of it, these are the numbers that we'd come up with. And so some of those might be kind of sticker shock, but you've got to start somewhere. You've got to at least have the data so that you can then make decisions and prioritize. But yeah, this is kind of the bottom line. And then just to break it down, like by each condition score. So again, we didn't have any ones. Condition 5, that data center, there isn't anything additional that we would recommend beyond what city's already doing for the data centers. But the other ones in there, the other conditions are also categorized too, just for your sake. So three of the systems that we included in our assessment but weren't in the CIP, just the telecommunications spaces, those visitor management and alarms, and the phone system. So we just wanted to call those out, that those weren't tagged in the CIP. So the recommendations, these next 2 pages are really just recaps of what we already saw in the previous slides and what I'd said. It's also all in the report as well. We can go through those, or you guys can just take a quick peek. If you've seen the report, then you've seen them as well. But we just wanted to have them as sort of a recap of the executive summary of what we think the city should consider tackling next. So 2 pages of that. And there it is, last one. So invite any questions or comments at all?
Questions, comments? I just think it's a great report. Thank you so much.
Thank
Mike
you.
and Tom. And Greg,
Kind of
thank
you.
you, because now we have a great understanding of how much it's going to cost between 2026 and 2030. We have $8 million that you're going to have to roll into your budget. But if I understand in reading the background, some of it is, out of that $8 million, part of it is going to be allocations, Jen, for like City Hall Police project and all, that's rolled into the project also, that $8 million, or not? Or is that separate?
Most of the capital identified is not included in the Police City Hall project. So these would be items that are outside of the project
Okay.
and
that's-
are programmed in the 2026 through 2030 CIP. The 3 items that were listed as not included in the programming of the CIP are the items that we'll have to address either in the IT CIP or possibly in the facility CIP. We're going to, as part of the process, go forward and look through the facility CIP to make sure that we're not doubling up items that, most of it around the telecommunications spaces, Madam Mayor, are related to either electrical, cooling, heating, that may be associated with facilities improvements.
Oh, so these 3 items are possibly in the facilities? Jen?
Yes.
Yep.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, yes. The answer to that
Okay.
question is, these are the 3 items that haven't been programmed and require further analysis across our team, across different capital budgets to determine what the best possible path forward is.
Okay.
I would echo, Mayor, your comments that the team did an excellent job in this work. I would also say that the study itself really revealed to us just how much thoughtful effort has gone into this point in capital planning from an IT perspective. Certainly, there are areas where we have condition 2 or condition 3 items that might even look scary, right,
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
first look. But the reality is that Tom and his team have done a very nice job planning for the future and addressing those important, critical infrastructure investments for
Yeah.
the organization and
Yeah.
for the community.
Yeah. And Mike, to your point, it may not be sexy, but it is infrastructure. It's like roads and sewer and water and all of that. It's stuff that you don't see, but it's necessary. It is critical
Yes.
to the way that we function. Without IT and what we do, we would be dead, just like if the grid isn't working, we have no power.
100%.
And none of us are operational, so, Tom, the infrastructure is really important.
I would agree.
Yeah, so it's good to know how much is in the capital improvement plan for the next 4 years, and how much we're going to have to. And that's just today's dollars that you're
They are.
quoting
They,
to
yeah,
us
they,
right now.
right, but I mean, there's inflation, so you do have
Yeah.
to, you have to take that into account, but, sometimes we don't. I mean, that's a crystal ball.
Yeah. But it's good, but at least we have a baseline to work from.
Indeed.
Yeah, good. Anybody else? Any? Great work. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the time.
Tom, Mike, and your team in doing the work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Okay.
much.
The next item is our legal update, and our city attorney, Jared Shepherd, is presenting. Jared, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council, here for another episode of the Legal Update. Tonight, we're going to talk a little bit about park dedication and the Puce versus Burnsville case that the
That's good. Everybody
city-
needs to be updated on that.
Yes, I think that the city is generally aware, but we're going to kind of contextualize it. The city council is generally aware, contextualize it in light of kind of where we have been, what happened with the lawsuit, and then where we're going, because the park dedication is going to come in front of you soon for some discussion. So, what is park dedication? Well, park dedication is something that occurs when the city is approving a subdivision of property. And that comes from state law, state statute on subdivisions, which allows the city to require the dedication of land for public use for park purposes or cash in lieu thereof. The state law provides that there must be a essential nexus between the fees or the dedication imposed and the purpose of that dedication. And another important piece of that state law is that it must be a reasonable portion of law. Reasonability is kind of grafted into the state statute. And again, this is for subdivisions of land. So we start with the state law, and we come down, like many things, we come down to the implementation of that at the local level and our city code. So the Burnsville requirements are at section 11.4.8E, and then we have a park dedication formula that we apply when we have a subdivision application. And in our code, we divide that into residential park dedication and commercial park dedication. We're really going to focus on when we discuss briefly here the Puce case, that is a commercial park dedication. And our dedication formula that we have in the code comes from analyzing our needs within the comprehensive plan, the 2040 comprehensive plan. So in 2019, and I actually think it started at the end of 2018, the city had an application from a Mr. Puce to subdivide his land for commercial purposes, commercial development. As part of that application, applying our formula under the code, we had an approximately $37,804 park dedication fee. That's again applying that formula in the code. After some discussion about the particularities of his parcel and the market value of the parcel itself, the city reduced that amount to $11,700. And again, that's that cash in lieu thereof. So as part of that application, as part of that negotiation, there can be a development that says, hey, we're going to set aside this amount of land for parks, or we're not going to do that as part of this particular development, so we'll do cash lieu of based on the ordinance and the formula. Mr. Puce wasn't happy with that deduction and sued the city over that park dedication fee. He sued that on the basis of no essential nexus. So we talked earlier about the statute requires an essential nexus, and that there was no rough proportionality, so the standards under the state law. Just a quick summary of the legal proceedings. The first avenue when you sue on a land use decision is state district court. The state district court upheld our park dedication fee. That was appealed to the Minnesota Court of Appeals. They reversed and found that our park dedication fee decision was invalid and violated the state law. Our legal counsel in the case filed what's called a petition for review to say, hey, this is a case that has application statewide, and it does. It was a case that was very much analyzed and watched by city attorneys and cities across the state, and the League of Minnesota Cities and various amicus. And so the Supreme Court accepted that petition for review. It was argued, and they reversed the Court of Appeals. We're really going to focus a little bit on the Supreme Court decision, but I do want to briefly highlight what happened next. So the Supreme Court upheld our park dedication decision, and that went back down to the district court. Mr. Puce tried to bring some other claims that kind of didn't get litigated in the first round, but were still live. At this point, several years had gone by, and one of our requirements is that the subdivision plat be recorded within 1 year.
Yeah.
That hadn't happened during the pendency of the lawsuit. So the city made the decision to, and so the plat was invalid under our decision-making, under our approval. We returned the fee. So when they tried to proceed to continue to litigate claims based on this approval, we argued that it was moot. The district court agreed with us. That was then appealed. There's always an appeal of right to the Court of Appeals. The Court of Appeals upheld the dismissal of the lawsuit, and it is done after several years of litigation. Now, I want to go back to the Supreme Court's decision. Many cities are still looking at that decision and trying to figure out, okay, do we need to make tweaks to our park dedication ordinance? Again, the court upheld what we did there, but I want to make some clear. It wasn't an endorsement of formulas as a whole, although the court said, yes, you can use formulas, statute allows formulas. But it wasn't a particular endorsement of our formulas being the way to get to rough proportionality under the state law. The big takeaway is that the city won because we could provide specific evidence about our actions. So again, the court looked at that essential nexus and rough proportionality, the two main requirements, and said, well, the statute itself really codifies essential nexus. In other words, the statute says it's okay to have park dedication as part of your subdivision plat. So there's a purpose there built into the statute, and then our ordinance just kind of takes that on down to Burnsville. The real focus is rough proportionality. So what are the need for the fee in the particular circumstances of the application that's in front of you? And then they looked at our application of the formula. And because we performed an individualized assessment, remember we went from that $37,000 roughly down to the 11. That satisfied the rough proportionality required by the statute. And again, if you look, our formula starts with kind of a formula based on acreage, based on our comp plan, but then we, again, applied the market value of the property, got that percentage, and applied that to the market value and got that lower number. And that's what the court upheld. So, again, when we look at what we've done and we look at what we're gonna do in the future, you know, we gotta have that essential nexus between the fee and the city's purpose, which we already have, and then the rough proportionality. We wanna make sure that our ordinance allows for that individual assessment, and we're making that approval, we're making it clear that we've made that individual assessment even when we're applying the formula. Again, a little bit more about essential nexus, we've kind of covered that, and rough proportionality, we've covered that as well. So best practices for our city and for all cities after PUCE. Formula ordinance review, it's a good time to take a look at our ordinance and take a look at our formula, make sure our formulas that we have built into the ordinance are up to date and consistent with you know, what's going on in the city right now. And then make sure we have a complete, clear record for each individual subdivision of the amount, the nature, and the need for the fee. And so that's that individualized assessment. So we're still gonna use the formula, but we're gonna make sure we're applying it in a way that makes sense. Might be an up, I mean, usually it's gonna be a downward adjustment, right? But, and what I would say is, last thing here, I was trying to keep it brief for you all tonight. We're currently reviewing the city's park dedication fees as part of a broader update to the ordinance, with the goal of ensuring alignment with our peer communities and to make sure that our formulas for residential developments are consistent and clear. This will come back to you, I believe, in an August work session for the first round of discussion about some amendments and tweaks to the park dedication ordinance.
Okay. Okay, I'll wait for that. One of the things is that this application for the Poos property, is he selling his property? Is he going to bring back a new development for his property? And if so, then the park dedication gets reapplied and it gets paid when the plat is signed, because this whole piece in giving back the fee was because he did not file the plat within a year of the application.
Yeah, sure, Mayor and Council. Yeah, you're correct. As Jared, the city attorney, mentioned, the plat was voided since they didn't meet all the conditions of approval. So should they want to proceed forward with a redevelopment of that property that requires platting under our subdivision ordinance, they would need to reapply for a preliminary and final plat and go through the standard process through the Planning Commission and Council. And we will then, as part of that standard review our park dedication requirements and apply them along the standards that Mr. Shepherd has outlined.
Okay, and it's a good thing that we went through this process with the court, so we really understand what the district court says and what the Supreme Court says.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we have a great record there to go back and say, here's what happened.
Yeah.
And, because you always like to cite cases.
Always, Mayor.
Yeah,
Always.
yeah,
Does
yeah.
this
Dan,
fall under Title 10 then?
This is Title 11.
Title 11,
Yeah.
okay. Is that something our planning is going to be going through as well, or just, okay? Just so I understand what our process is going to be in this.
Yeah.
Thank you.
because didn't we go through that with the task force? You didn't do?
No, it's the stuff.
Oh, the planning
This is
commission.
statutory, what planning has to go through some of
Okay,
these
it
things.
has to go through planning, and planning is working on that right now. Okay, then that'll
Will
come
be.
to us in August, you say?
Mayor and council, just this week, we were talking about a little bit more time to work through that ordinance amendment, so it's currently scheduled for the September work session.
Oh, okay, very good.
Did I get that wrong, or did you just change it again?
You got it right.
Either one.
Okay, it's September, Jared.
Yeah, got it.
Okay. Any other questions? Vince?
But, so this is all based on state statute, right? So
Yeah.
most cities are following what's been provided to us by this legislature, correct?
That's correct, Councilmember Workman, but most cities are, just like us, have tried to find a formula to make the application of the statute easier, right? So in order to figure out how do we figure out how much land is reasonable and necessary under the statute as part of the dedication, or how much cash is reasonable or necessary. And so cities have done that differently. So the court certainly didn't say this is exactly how you have to do it. This is what a formula has to look like. They just said that our formula and its application in this particular instance was fine and didn't violate the statute. And acknowledged that formulas in general are an okay way to apply the statute. Does that make sense?
A city like Burnsville that has less land is gonna formulate that differently than a city like Lakeville that has more land, so it's more local control baked in per city. I mean, does every city handle this slightly differently?
I would say every city handles this slightly differently. And again, our concept of that formula, let's take the commercial scenario, for example, was tied to our comp plan in terms of our needs. So that is going to be that local specific basis. So there's basis here locally based on the studies essentially that undergird the comp plan for our needs, because it has to be, can't just be tied to some sort of ethereal need. It has to be specific.
So obviously, we're gonna dig into this more at our next meeting, but when we're looking at potential developments like Sioux Trail, for example, do we have the ability to say we would rather have the land in
But
lieu
we
of
want
the
cash.
cash? I mean, we have the ability to say, we don't want your cash, we want the land.
Yes.
And is it up to the council and the city as far as the discretion on how much of that land, or is that what's baked into the policy?
That's what's baked into the code. But, you know, as all things, when we have a development application, there's a development agreement, and there's certain discussions that happen in terms of how that development application comes in front of the city. But it is gonna to stem from our code, which is gonna have the formula for the donation of the land or the cash in lieu of.
And that's what we're gonna try to tighten up a little bit at our next meeting.
That's correct.
Okay, Jeff?
looks like
Mayor,
he wants
yeah,
to
if I can
say
just add, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, Jared, but as we've talked to the council, I know specifically to the Sioux Trail development, as that went through the sketch plan review, the park dedication, as Mr. Shepherd said, right, is land or cash or improvements, right, for those equitable amount. It's important to note that the developer of any property is only responsible for the dedication of parkland that's necessary to serve that development
Yeah.
itself,
That
right?
specific
That's
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
simplified language of the rough proportionality in the nexus.
So it's not a one-to-one of what's being taken away, it's what's relevant to that specific development.
Yeah.
Yeah, the needs created out of that development.
So in theory, that higher density would have required a larger,
Yeah, park dedication.
In theory, yeah.
in theory.
Yeah, and our current calculation is based on, for a residential development, right, the expected population of the proposed development of a residential being the metric of park needs, and the standard that is established in our ordinance.
Got it. Thank you.
The other thing that I think is also important here is that, for instance, when we're doing a redevelopment from a commercial to residential, the property on the Burnsville Parkway, it roars redeveloping. The park dedication was already paid on a commercial site. Was there a park dedication because now it's residential and has residents that might need a park?
Correct.
Yeah, because there's a difference in that nuance also to go from commercial to residential, and now you have children. And so there's, the code also addresses that. Yes, okay. I think that's what people also need to understand, even though there was a park dedication that was applied when it was a commercial property. But now when you're redeveloping, and it goes from commercial to residential, then there's the formula then is then recalculated.
Yes, as we mentioned kind of at the outset, there's, in our code, there's the residential formula and the
Yeah.
commercial formula, and you're right, the impacts are different in terms of the amount of impact on our park system, for sure.
Yeah. Just so that people understand, because I've tried to explain. Yes, it was a commercial property, but now it's residential, and so there is an impact, if you will. Jeff?
Last thing I'll add, Mayor, is just as we approach this ordinance amendment to park dedication specifically for Title 10, which is outside of the larger Title 10 updates, one is, as we've talked about, it's important that it reflects the legal standard that Jared has provided you tonight. There's two other things we're looking at, right? What is kind of demonstrated park need in Burnsville, right?
Yeah.
Informed by Burnsville-specific plans and studies, some of which are recent for the council. And second, we do want to incorporate kind of a market comparison of us compared to other cities on how our park dedication compares to our peer communities, so that it's informed by that. Again, it needs to be specifically tailored based on Burnsville, but it should be informed by the market conditions of our peers.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you. It's good. I'm glad you brought that in, and now we understand that in September we'll get a look at the amendments for Title 11. Yeah. Okay. Very
Thank you,
good.
Mayor.
Anything else? All right. Roundtable. There are no items in roundtable. So reports. Vince?
I got nothing.
Experience Burnsville had to cancel this month because of the League of Minnesota Cities. We had no quorum, so.
Okay. Kara?
Mine are coming up.
Okay.
And
I
Keely's not
just-
here.
Huh? I know.
Keely's not here.
He's not.
That's short, didn't it?
Yeah, guess what? Yeah. But my report is that, remember, the International Festival is this week. So Thursday, we have the art reception, and we're going to have an art show. And then on Saturday is the International Festival. So everybody come
I'll be there.
and enjoy. Yeah, so that's all I have, because the Community Foundation doesn't meet in July. Okay. And with that, we stand adjourned by acclamation for the work session, and we are going to recess and then come back for the budget work session. So, 10 minutes.